Hello and welcome to episode 108 of Sitcom Showdown. My name is Jeffers, also of Podcasto Cap Flapo, and I'm here with my brother Steve. Hello, Steve.
G'day, Jeff. G'day, listeners.
And if you've never listened to Sitcom Showdown before, we've changed the format a few times over the years, but basically once a month we talk about a sitcom, which is either chosen by me, or chosen by you, Steve, or chosen by a listener, or, sometimes there's different themes.
Yeah.
And in the past, we have talked about sitcoms like We Are Men, which in that particular case only survived 2 episodes before cancellation, and they're curious things. So what have you got for us this time around, Steve?
Well, we're going to go one better. We're going to go with a sitcom that was cancelled after only 1 episode. Yeah, so this is, actually, we're reopening the Hall of Shame.
Oh, dude.
Which we've only visited twice before. So we're revisiting that. And we're going to examine a sitcom called Heil Honey I'm Home.
Mm-hmm. Everything you need to know is right there in the title.
So Heil Honey I'm Home was a British sitcom written by Jeff Atkinson. And Jeff was a frequent collaborator with a guy called Rory Bremner. Do you know Rory, Jem?
Rory Bremner's a famous impressionist, isn't he?
I'm not sure, but he had panel shows and he had his own shows as well. Anyway, Heil Honey I'm Home was produced in 1990 for the Galaxy Network, which was a short-lived satellite television channel in the UK. The show was presented with a fictional backstory. Supposedly, what we're watching is the rediscovered lost tapes of an abandoned, never-aired American sitcom created by Brandon Thalberg Jr.
Uh-huh.
So a similar concept to the beloved, not hated, Garth Marenghi's Dark Place.
Oh, okay.
But Garth Marenghi's Dark Place took the show within a show idea even further, and they did things like intercutting the recovered show with commentary from the stars and the people who were involved in the production, whereas this has none of that. All it has is the title sequence thing, which we'll talk about in a little while.
Makes the editing job simpler.
Yeah, as to whether it makes it better or not, we can discuss that later. Heil Honey I'm Home centred on Adolf Hitler, yes, you heard me right, Adolf Hitler and Ava Braun, who live next door to a Jewish couple, Arnie and Rosa Goldenstein. And the show spoofs elements of mid-century American sitcoms, mid-20th century American sitcoms. And it's driven by Hitler's inability to get along with his neighbours.
Yep.
The first episode was shown at 9:30 on a Sunday night after an episode of Dad's Army.
Yeah.
And during the credits of Dad's Army, the Galaxy's announcer said, "And unless Arthur Lowe defeats him, it's the man himself in a few moments in Heil Honey I'm Home as the Galaxy comedy weekend continues." I thought that was interesting. Dad's Army back-to-back with Heil Honey I'm Home. So as I alluded to before, 11 episodes of this show were planned and 8 were recorded, but it was cancelled after only 1 episode, Jeff, which was a pilot, which is ironic given the backstory of this show, this fictional show being abandoned, the never-aired American sitcom. And, yes, did you want to say something about that?
No, I'm just pondering that, because how would they have even stretched it out to 8 episodes, much less 11? But we'll
I've got similar thoughts.
Yeah.
Yes. So let's have a little clip of Paul Jackson, a friend of Jeff's show, talking about the cancellation.
As the executive producer of this show, as opposed to the producer of this show, Heil Honey I'm Home.
Yes.
So,
do you want to give a credit to the source of this?
Oh, yes. Okay. So there's a clip from a brilliant podcast called Talking Bottom, and they were interviewing Paul Jackson as part of, talking about the sitcom Bottom, which we've covered here on Sitcom Showdown, Steve. And then they started talking about Heil Honey I'm Home, and I thought, yes, there's a clip. Well, I'm sure Paul Jackson was talking about this, so I'll send it your way.
You were spot on, and I thought it was brilliant.
Oh, good. Yes. Well, let's hear that then, yeah.
There's a sitcom that we wanted to ask you a little bit about that we've mentioned once or twice. We've talked about once or twice on the podcast, which is we wondered how the sitcom Heil Honey I'm Home was pitched to you, and whether it's true that whether a series was filmed but only 1 episode was broadcast.
So what happened was we had this BSB contract with British Satellite Broadcasting, and we were making 8 or 10 hours a week for them of comedy and entertainment. They'd been on the air for maybe a year. Good old friend of mine called John Gow was the controller of programs there. And he said to me after about 9 months or a year, he said, Paul, it's lovely, we're all doing very well, I want to recommission all the shows, but we're at the point now where we need to make a noise. We need to get some publicity. Have you got anything, comedy is very often good for doing that. Have you got anything that you think might cause? And I said, well, there is this mad writer called Jeff Atkinson. Worked with Jeff a lot.
Yeah.
And I knew he had this script. I hadn't read it, but I knew he had this script. And I said, he's got this script called Heil Honey I'm Home, which is a 50s American sitcom version of Adolf and Eva living next door to a Jewish couple. And John said, well, that sounds interesting. Can I have a look? So I went to Jeff and said, what do you think? And he said, oh, God, he was so apostolic about this show, Jeff. Anybody who'd stop, he'd say, this show, it really, they discover it in the vaults of a 50s thing. It's not anti-Semitic, it's not praising Hitler. Anyway, I showed it to John. John said, yes, okay, let's have a go. So we commissioned 13 scripts,
13.
Got a writer over from America to co-write with Jeff, and we started to shoot them. We shot about 6 or 7 when Sky bought BSB. And another friend of mine, David Elstein, was the controller of programs at Sky, and he phoned me up the morning I think they bought it and said, Paul, we need a meeting. And I said, yeah. He said, just tell me very quickly this Heil Honey thing. And I said, yeah. He said, stop it now. And I said, what, literally you don't want this one this week shot? And he said, no, stop it. We're never going to show it, so stop it. I'm pretty sure, I can't swear to, we never got to editing more than the first one. We'd edited the first one to show the executives, and the rest we were kind of rough assembling, but we were going to edit it all at the end. And I think that all those tapes were sequestered by Sky, who said, right,
really?
Just give us all the material,
Yeah.
all the scripts, everything, because they owned it.
Yeah.
Okay, and we're back. Heil Honey I'm Home caused controversy when broadcast and has been called perhaps the world's most tasteless situation comedy. David Hawkes, Professor of English, cites Heil Honey I'm Home as a heavy-handed concept and argues that the show was a failure as a comedy because it disastrously exceeded the limits of irony. Mm-hmm. I like that quote.
Yeah.
Even so, the show has reached a level of infamy in which it still gets discussed in incredulous terms on retrospective programs.
Wow.
Like this one.
Yeah, exactly.
It's our turn.
Yeah.
So we've talked a bit about the production. So we're going to go on to the cast now.
Uh-huh.
Now, a strange thing happened when I went to do this little exercise.
Right.
I shouldn't say a little exercise because it's never a little exercise.
No, it's hours worth of note-taking.
Exactly. But I went on to Wikipedia, which is, of course, the best source for all this kind of information. And almost none of these actors had work or had a wiki page.
Right.
Which is very strange.
Oh. Except for Neville Chamberlain, perhaps?
Yes, well,
okay,
he certainly has one. Mm. Yeah, it's a bit unusual, and my first thought was, they all got cancelled after being on this show. But no, they've got an
wouldn't have helped.
Yeah, they've got an IMDb page, so that's what we're relying on.
Yes.
In this episode,
some good old Sitcom Showdown, copying and pasting from Wikipedia.
Not copying and pasting, paraphrasing. I'll have you know. So Neil McCall starred as Adolf Hitler, and Neil has many credits. And a lot of them are voice work on video games and that sort of thing. But notable sitcom appearances include one episode of Hot Metal and one episode of Father Ted. He played Father Terry in A Christmassy Ted in 1996.
I can't place.
I'm not placing that one.
Father Terry.
He also did 10 episodes of Up the Garden Path, which was an ITV sitcom about a school teacher involved in a love triangle.
Oh, okay.
Next, we've got Danica Fairman as Eva Braun. And she was replaced by Maria Friedman in the unaired episodes, which of course we're not going to be talking about today. But Danica also seems to have done a reasonable amount of voice work, which is interesting, including a lot of animation and anime.
Right, and even to present day?
Yeah, I think that it does stretch on for quite a while. So,
cool.
Yeah. But no notable sitcom roles.
Ooh.
So we're getting through this rather quickly, Jeff.
It's not a big cast when you compare it to something like Hello, Hello, which is massive, or Are You Being Served?
Yeah.
So it's saving us valuable
time to talk about other things. Gareth Marks had the role of Arnie Goldenstein. Gareth's notable sitcom appearances include episodes of Bottom and The Upper Hand, which was adapted from the British sitcom Who's the Boss?
Right.
And that UK version ran for 7 series.
7? Oh, I find that difficult to believe, but wow, okay, I'm glad to hear it.
That's what my notes say.
What role did he play in Bottom, Steve-O?
He was the receptionist in an episode of Bottom called Finger.
Right. I wonder, is that the one where they go to the fancy hotel?
I don't know.
And there's the French restaurant there and all that sort of stuff.
And then we've got Caroline Gruber as Rosa Goldenstein. I thought it was funny that her name was Caroline Gruber.
From Hello,
Of course, Gruber being the German officer in Hello,
with
Hello.
his little tank.
Indeed. Now, she played the maid in the same episode of Bottom called Finger.
Okay, excellent. So that's
So-
the one, yeah.
Maybe she was a maid in a hotel.
Yeah.
Good, yes, so that was the same one. And also, she was in The Upper Hand. It was quite the coincidence.
Yeah.
And also in an episode of Brushstrokes, which we've never looked
Jacko,
at, but
no, but
it's quite a good one.
it's been on the list for a long time.
All right, let's come back in a sec.
Okay, Ava. Gotta go. Gotta get to the race stag.
Go get him, Tiger!
I love you, Berlin! You knuckleheads! When Chamberlain comes by tonight, get yourself all dolled up. Show him a little bit of that hoochie-coochie girl magic. And remember, don't tell Rosa Goldenstein. Okay, I'm out of here.
Hey, hi, Adolf. They got the car? Only I'm running a little late. It's not a problem. I'll pay for the gasoline.
What's next, Dave?
Okay, so I'm going to chew up the valuable time we just saved talking about the cast by talking about something else.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to talk about before we move on to the synopsis is this concept of making Hitler a character in an entertainment show.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd been thinking about the question, under what circumstances could you make this work? And
Yeah.
in terms of background, what I'm talking about here is what have people done in the past?
Oh, okay.
What a previous
'Cause I was
example.
about to say you're putting more thought into this than Jeff, the writer of this show. But okay,
possibly.
well done.
Now, assassinating Hitler is a big one, and I recently sat down and watched an episode of Doctor Who with my son, and we watched Let's Kill Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he actually gets killed in that one, but he gets put in the cupboard for most of the time, so I think that's how they got around the Hitler issue.
Yeah.
Yes, but what about some other shows, Jeff? There is a web page called ultimatepopculturefandom.com wiki, and they've got a whole page which is Adolf Hitler in popular culture.
Right.
#television. Yes, I never knew I was going to need that page. but
Yeah.
Here you go.
Well, thank goodness someone's already done the work.
So this includes movies and TV. There's Mel Brooks's comedy, The Producers, which featured a satirical play within a play
Right.
called Springtime for Hitler, featuring dancing Nazis and a song about the conquest of Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And Springtime for Hitler, the fictional play within a play, was designed to fail as part of an embezzlement scheme put together by a theatre producer and his accountant. So it's this idea again of a show within a show.
So, quick question though. What year was that, The Producers?
I don't know.
Because in the 80s, Mel Brooks had a chart, I won't say chart topping, but certainly chart penetrating Hitler rap. So he did an entire rap tune
Hitler
that
rap.
hit the charts as Hitler.
Interestingly, I don't have the Hitler rap on here, but I do have another
it's not a
Mel
TV show.
Brooks
Oh, right,
entry
yeah.
from the later movie History of the World Part 1, which featured Hitler on Ice. So Mel's obviously obsessed with Hitler or something. There's Hitler's Brain and the Robot from Hell, a 2015 movie in which a scientist inadvertently resurrects Hitler by inserting his brain into a robot meant for another historical figure.
Right. Was it a more worthwhile historical figure, or you don't know?
I don't know.
Fair enough.
It's got to be a quality movie, though.
Yeah.
We've got Mr. Hilter, which is portrayed by John Cleese in a Monty Python sketch as someone staying with friends at a boarding house in Somerset and being introduced to other guests by the landlady as they plot the reunification of Taunton and Minehead.
Oh,
It's one I hadn't seen before.
okay. Is there any mention on there about the classic Goodies episode where there's a robot Churchill which they had to make during the war because, unfortunately, the real Mr. Churchill, as it turned out, looked exactly like Hitler?
Mr. Winston Churchill?
Yes? Do you see my problem?
Excuse me, sir, but why do you look like that?
Because I do. Well, it's not a disguise, you know.
What? You mean that's real? Leave it alone. So you've always looked like that? Yes, of course I have.
How very embarrassing.
Well, not really. Well, not until war broke out. I thought I looked rather dashing. But when I saw Hitler, I was very cross, I can tell you.
Yeah, I bet you were. I bet you were.
Not that I think that he's that similar. No, I don't think we look a bit alike.
Oh, you do, you know. Perhaps if you shaved?
Shave? Why should I? Ask Hitler to shave.
Well, I definitely would have had that one on my list if I'd seen it. The only other one I could find, or the only other one that I thought was worth mentioning, was a Red Dwarf episode called Meltdown. In that episode, Crichton takes a matter paddle on the Red Dwarf, and the crew decide to test it out and end up on Waxworld, an enormous wax droid theme park where wax droids modelled after history's most famous heroes and villains are at war with each other.
By crikey.
Including Hitler.
Yeah.
Yes, I was going to ask you if you'd thought of any others as we were going through them, but you've already given me one, so...
Oh, good.
You're off the hook, dude.
Excellent.
Oh. Well, now we're going to...
Yes,
go into the... Do you want to say something?
Yes, well, I'll talk to you about the show briefly. Do we need a disclaimer of some sort? I mean, I do think, if we actually need to say the words, anything that we happen to inadvertently praise of the production of this program, like that was a good gag, or geez, I thought the actor did really well there, is not an endorsement of any type.
Of any Nazi
of anything to do
shenanigans.
with the Nazis. Yeah, shenanigans, all that sort of stuff. And I just think, oh man, but that's 2024 for you. So I thought I might slip in some sort of disclaimer.
Yes. I figured, given as we picked it for the Hall of Shame, and we're generally putting the boot into it, you could just take that as read, but I appreciate the thought, Jeff.
I think we should have a blaring disclaimer every 3 minutes.
Someone's just going to clip out the bit they want and play that anyway.
Well, this is the age
out of the millions of
social
people
media.
that listen to this podcast.
So yes, I'm going to call him Fictional Adolf and Fictional Ava from this point on, just to make clear that we're talking about a 1980s British-produced sitcom.
Yes. Okay, very good.
Thank you.
And let's have a clip, and we'll come back with a synopsis.
Heil Honey.
Heil Honey.
Heil Honey.
Heil Honey.
Heil Honey.
Hello.
I'm home. Heil Honey.
Heil Honey.
Smile honey. Because I'm home. Gee, it's great to be Top Gun, but it's nothing like the fun that I get when I say Heil Honey, I am home. Heil Honey.
Heil Honey.
Smile honey. Gee, it's great to be back. Heil Honey, I'm home.
Say, Ava, did Arnie and I disturb you last night?
No, honey.
No, I thought not. We never disturb no one no more. We're so dull, even the bird complains we get him down. Imagine that, a neurotic canary.
Honey, say, do you think just about the most important person in Europe would like my meatloaf?
Just about the most important person in Europe is coming here.
Gee, did I say that? Me and my big mouth. Adolf will kill me. If I didn't actually tell you.
You mean if you hinted and I guessed?
Right.
2 words. First word. Sounds like...
And just before we start, we've never covered anything from the 50s from memory, Steve. So we've done the 60s.
Yes, Hancock.
Hancock was from the 50s, wasn't it? Or was it 1961?
It was in black and white.
All right, I should have done my research beforehand. But it's not something like we haven't done The Honeymooners. We haven't done I Love Lucy, anything on the American side of things. So this will sort of be new territory-ish.
How do you mean, though?
No, because if we had this background of having looked into a whole bunch of these domestic American 1950s and 60s sitcoms, then we might be able to have that frame of reference where we look at this and go, aha, they're doing that thing from I Love Lucy, or they're doing, whatever it happens to be from The Honeymooners and blah, blah, blah.
You're right.
But,
If only
both
we had
of us
that
are going to be completely
experience under our belts.
Yeah, which we don't.
We don't. We'll just have to pretend we do.
Yeah. Very good.
All right, so we start with a slide containing the aforementioned fictional backstory.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go into the jingly credits in the style of the mid-20th century American sitcom, which we just discussed. And during that, we see an exterior photo of an apartment block where the Hitlers and Goldensteins supposedly live. Does that remind you of anything, Jeff?
It reminds me of a pretty sweet apartment. in Berlin there? Is that what we're talking about? I mean,
Well, it reminded me of Beans of Boston and the opening credits to that.
Yes.
Because, yes, you see the Yaldi apartment store in that, which is a similar
developing
building
over time. And
Yes. Anyway, the opening scene proper features Hitler returning to his apartment and saying his catchphrase,
Heil Honey I'm Home.
Heil Honey I'm Home. Eva, however, is not happy that he's returned home from work late again. He's missed his schnitzel dinner, which is a terrible thing to do. I would never be home late for a schnitzel dinner.
No way.
No. So he moves towards her to try and make things right, and she holds her hand up, and I thought, were they pretending to do a Nazi salute here? Because she puts the hand right up in front of his face. No, you don't think it was?
No, it was more traffic cop manoeuvres, I think.
Yes, okay. In any case, she's not having a bar of his apologies. So he goes one step further, and to appease her, he announces that Neville Chamberlain will be coming over for dinner tomorrow. That always cheers your wife up, doesn't it?
When you announce when I say I've got the
head of
Prime
state's
Minister
going to be
popping
around.
Yeah.
Yes. As Eva observes, Neville's coming to Munich because there's a crisis over in Czechoslovakia, which we're going to talk more about in a bit. We'll delve into that in good time. But they're interrupted by a noise next door. And Hitler says he doesn't want the putzers next door finding out about their famous visitor coming.
Yeah.
Which, putzers is a Yiddish or a Jewish saying, so...
Yeah, you putz.
I don't know.
And
How do you feel about them putting Jewish terms into Hitler's
Well, I was
mouth?
thinking more, the classic American things later on, because I've got a comment about when he whips out knuckleheads. And I always enjoy a bit of putz or knucklehead or whatever it happens to be. But yeah, you're asking a different question.
Yes. Feel free to answer it or not.
Yeah.
I thought it was a bit dubious. But maybe they're putting them, because they're inserting them into this mid-20th century thing.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be New Yorkers or from New Jersey or something like this.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
So very much like the I Love Lucy thing.
In that way, they are using the vernacular of them.
Yeah, totally.
Those people. Anyway, apparently when Mussolini came around, the neighbours were sneaking around every 5 minutes, and he doesn't want a repeat of that. You could understand.
Yeah.
He does say that the Goldensteins must have incredible powers of observation. Hitler says that when he finally gets around to invading Poland, they'll know about it before the Polish authorities.
And we soon find out why.
Well, yes. The action moves next door to the Goldensteins' apartment. And there's a short scene here where they complain about the Hitlers arguing next door, and then proceed to have an argument themselves. Did you notice that?
I thought, first good gag of the show, because they're hearing Hitler yelling it over through the walls. And he goes, you'd think this guy gets enough chances to argue at work without bringing it home with him.
Yeah.
Very good. But yes, couples bickering is not my sort of, not the sort of sitcoms I like to watch.
Yeah.
And this is very much that, there's a whole bunch of, I hate your mother, and you didn't come home in time for dinner, and, all the domestic stuff. So,
yeah. I think the main point of this scene is that they also are going to be having a visitor.
Yeah.
And the visitor specifically is Ruth, a 22-year-old niece who's looking for love. Rosa has invited her to stay at their place without talking to Arnie first, which maybe that's why the argument kicks off.
Of course, yeah.
How are we going so
I
far?
think it kicks off because the first we hear of Arnie, and this is a few minutes before the point which we're up to now, we're in the Hitler's apartment, and we can hear the voice of Arnie out in the hallway, more or less saying, Rosa, I don't smell my dinner cooking. So obviously it's the opposite of the Hitler situation, where he's come home thinking, where's the din-dins?
Yep.
And Rosa hasn't got it going because she's been out spending lots of money, and etc.
Well, maybe she was over it.
Yeah, and then
the Hitler's house having a chinwag.
Well, that's right. And then not only does he have no dinner, but now we're finding out that this niece has come to stay.
Oh, it's too much.
Yeah, it is too much.
Make anyone snap. The next day, Hitler leaves for work after shouting, I love you, Berlin, you knuckleheads, from the balcony. You liked that, did you?
Yeah, is that a reference to something that we have no idea what it is? Is this something that they used to...
I don't know. They used to do.
Oh, no, I just mean 50s? If that was in a sitcom that we're not aware of.
Maybe there was a famous movie line where someone says,
I
love you, New York.
Yeah, knuckleheads.
You knuckleheads. Bit like leaning out the window and saying, I'm as mad as hell.
I'm not going to take it anymore.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, There is then what I thought was a confusing scene with him and Arnie at the door. It was over in a flash, and I just did not get what was happening.
So,
here.
do they carpool?
That was the first thing that popped in my mind.
Yeah, hilarious concept. So, Arnie is late picking up fictional Adolf, and because it doesn't take much to get fictional Adolf annoyed, he's sort of griping at Arnie, and Arnie says, "Don't worry, I'll pay for the petrol." It flew
That
by.
was my inclination, but I feel like there was something missing, or they just sped through it too quickly or something.
Yeah.
Then there's a scene with the ladies in the Hitler's apartment after Ruth has arrived, and Ruth does make a short appearance here, enough to establish that she's a nerdy-looking, allergy-prone home dweeb, the way I described her. She's not much of a looker.
Oh, she dresses more stylishly than I do, but aside from that,
Fair enough. Anyway, she leaves, and then Eva can't help herself but drop hints about her very important visitor. And when the hints fail to get the message across, they go into a game of charades involving bananas. So it seems obvious to me that they're friends.
yeah.
They're on
I
good
reckon.
terms.
Absolutely.
That's why I suggested that they might have been talking to each other, I don't know, drinking cocktails or something instead of making dinner.
And that's why dinner didn't get made.
Yeah, possibly. Anyway, we do get the information about the visitor across, and Rosa, of course, gets it into her head that she's going to try her hand at matchmaking, and she's got Ruth and Neville Chamberlain in her sights.
With an age gap of only about 50 years.
Yes, and I'm going to add on to that by saying he was married, and real Neville Chamberlain was married, so
Oh, okay.
maybe they don't care about such things in Berlin in the
Yes,
1940s.
You know, what happens in
1930s.
Berlin stays in Berlin, Steve.
Never heard that before, but thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Later that day, Arnie and Rosa are discussing matchmaking in the corridor, and Arnie is on board with the idea as long as it means getting rid of Ruth out of his house.
Yeah, he's very unkind. He does say at some point something to the equivalent of he hopes she drops dead or something along those sorts of lines.
It's not the nicest thing to say.
No.
And then
He's not a very sympathetic character, Arnie, and I'll go on about that later.
Yes. After this conversation, they head around to the Hitler's place.
Yep.
I've said head around, but they literally probably lean across and open the door. 'Cause they're in the hallway outside the door. Yes. Anyway, they're bringing Earl Grey tea and baked Chelsea buns, don't you know?
Oh.
To make their special guest, or not their special guest, but the Hitler's special guest, feel at home. And Hitler, you know, as soon as he sees them come through the door with this stuff for the special guest, realises
someone
know
has spilled the beans.
Somehow the message has gone across. And at first he suspects Eva of telling Rosa. But then Rosa tells him that, no, it wasn't that Eva spilled the beans. It was that she was eavesdropping at the door or something, at the wall with a glass up to the wall. So the walls must be thin in this apartment.
Yeah.
You think Hitler would have better soundproofing or security on his apartment, right?
You would think so, because otherwise a lot of battle plans will be going next door.
So Hitler's getting fully PO'd at this point.
Yep.
And they go off to the kitchen and have a conversation. Eva tells Hitler to lighten up. And to try and de-stress, he starts thinking nice thoughts about Poland, the Sudetenland, and France.
He's visualising.
Yeah, that's right. And she suggests a plan, which is to get the Goldensteins blotto and then basically bundle them out the door while they're under the influence.
Yeah. So I'm looking at you strangely, Steve, and
Yes.
then you're
Well, what have I
returning
done?
my strange look. No, because now I think I've gotten the plot events wrong in my head.
Oh.
Because I thought at some stage, and this could be coming up, is Ava, she convinces fictional Adolf that, listen, if you're just in there being nasty to the neighbours, this isn't going to go over particularly well with Neville Chamberlain. What you want to do is you want to project this image of a person who enjoys spending time with his neighbours and is a very friendly guy.
Let's call that plan B, but we're only at plan A at this point.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
We've got to see this one fail before we get onto that one. So as I've already said, this fails, and Arnie and Rosa are getting sozzled, but they're not leaving at all. And Ruth is coming over, apparently, once she's changed. And there's a call on the phone to say that Neville's arrived early in Berlin, and Hitler heads off to go and pick him up, apparently. And sometime later they come back, And at this point, the Goldensteins are even more cooked than
Completely
they were
hammered.
before. Yeah, absolutely. Eva says, "Mr. Chamberlain, how about a pot of tea?" And he responds by, the British Prime Minister responds by singing "I'm a Little Teapot."
Yeah.
What did you think of this?
I didn't enjoy it.
Not a fan?
No. He, just to spoilers, everybody, Neville Chamberlain has the worst jokes. And he's always cracking gags, but they're always really lame gags. Or did you enjoy
He
them,
wasn't much
Steve,
of a
'cause they're dad
statesman and he
jokes?
wasn't much of
No,
a
that's
joke
right.
teller. Yes. Would you like to hear a little about "I'm a Little Teapot"?
Okay. Have we got a short essay on the...
I'm trying to pad this episode out, dude.
Yeah, oh, brilliant. Yeah, no, well, look, he's not up to Tim Brooke Taylor standard with the "I'm a teapot, I'm a teapot."
No.
But he's more faithful to the source material.
To the original, which was an American novelty song describing the heating and pouring of a teapot or a whistling tea kettle. The song was originally written by George Harold Sanders and Clarence Z. Kelly and published in 1939. By 1941, a Newsweek article referred to the song as the next inane novelty song to sweep the country. So, yes, published in 1939, so you can see it was around the era.
Well, it's 1 year after this is set.
Exactly.
So Jeffers didn't do his research on that one, did he?
Yeah, so maybe it was copyrighted in the US in 39, but becoming popular in Berlin. No,
that's right.
Popular in
before they
England
recorded
because-
it, they would have toured it. You say?
Oh, that's right.
So they'd seen the early tour of
That's right.
Berlin.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
It's Neville who's doing it,
Neville.
so he must have been in the UK. Anyway, we've gone slightly off the...
Don't worry,
slightly off
we
the
added
rails here.
another minute or two.
Yep, good. I said the whole thing gets a bit silly, but I guess we're getting a bit silly as well. Anyway, the Hitlers convene another meeting in the kitchen to come up with Plan B. And this time Eva suggests that it might, as you've already said, Jeff, improve Adolf's image on the international stage if he's seen by Neville to be a down-to-earth guy who has fun with his neighbours. And Rosa goes to fetch Ruth after Neville says how he wishes he'd brought a partner to this fantastic party that they've put on. Neville and Hitler now have a quiet word in the kitchen, and we're going to have a clip.
Say, Adolf, old chap, do you think I could have a word with you in private?
Sure. Come on into the kitchen. So, what is it, buddy, huh?
Well, I was just wondering if you could do me a favor.
What is it? A girl? You want me to fix you up?
No. It's just that I feel, well, we all feel, that you have been rather a naughty boy. All this Czechoslovakia nonsense, eh?
Oh, come on, Neville. It was just having fun.
Oh, yes. Fine. But I have got here a piece of here we are, yes. A document. Peace in our time.
Peace in our time?
You see, this guarantees that you won't be a naughty boy again.
Oh, so if I sign this, that guarantees I won't invade Europe.
Well, I mean, no need to sign it now. Just think about it, no point in spoiling the party. No rush.
Sure, Neville. Say, Neville, what do you say to a small drink?
Hello, small drink.
You kill me! Peace in our time. Huh? Boy, you invade one little country. Everyone is on your back. Well, I ain't going to be signing this thing.
So at the end of that clip, Hitler breaks the This is something that the listeners may not have got from the clip, Clippy Poo. Hitler breaks the fourth wall, and he also hides a document in the fridge. The document which Neville Chamberlain has brought over. But what I want to do now is quickly lay out what's going on in terms of real history, so we understand what's going on. Now, previous generations might have just known this stuff, but I didn't, so I thought I'd look it up. September 1938 was a completely mad month, and towards the end of the month, Neville Chamberlain flew to Munich to try and avert war in Europe. And a deal was done, which was called the Munich Agreement between Nazi Germany, Great Britain, France and Italy. Presumably this is the document, this is the yet unsigned document which Neville hands to Hitler in the kitchen. The agreement provided for the German annexation of the northern part of Czechoslovakia, which was called the Sudetenland, which the Sudetenland he'd already mentioned as coveting earlier in the episode. And by annexation, what we mean is the Germans were going to be allowed to go in there with no consequences, no strings attached. Well, I shouldn't say no strings attached, because in return they were going to make no further demands for land in Europe. So they would take this bit of Czechoslovakia, then they were done. No further aspirations. And Neville Chamberlain returned to England and famously declared that on the back of the agreement there would be peace in our time.
And he's waving the piece of paper around.
Waving the piece of paper, and this is what they call it in the sitcom episode, the peace in our time paper or something like that.
Yeah.
Of course, World War II started less than a year later, on the 1st of September 1939, with the German invasion of Poland and the United Kingdom and France's declaration of war on Germany 2 days later, on the 3rd of September. And I should also say, before I wrap up, that Czechoslovakia was not consulted about the agreement, giving away a rather substantial portion of their country.
Uh-huh.
So, in hindsight, the Munich Agreement, the peace in our time paper, was kind of cloaked in failure.
Well, I think so.
Oh. They're into the history lesson.
Yeah.
I love doing history stuff.
Oh, good.
Yes. Back to the party.
Mm-hmm.
There's what I'm calling a Julius Caesar conga line going through the lounge room. Now, why is it a Julius Caesar conga line, Jeff?
Is that the I came, I saw, I conquered bit?
Yeah. That's what they're singing. I came, I saw, I conquered. Ruth does make an appearance at this point, and after a short conga, she gets introduced to Neville. She suggests that they go on a date later in the week, and he seems open to it. And she asks him, do you want a lock of my hair for your wallet? And he says, oh, that seems like a fair swap.
Yeah. Which is bordering on amusing, I thought.
Bordering on amusing.
Yeah.
There you
well,
go.
what was your thought on that one, Steve? Yeah, that says it all.
I don't know. All the jokes are lame.
Are you going to bring up the teeth gag later on?
Oh, yes, that's coming
good.
up. Don't rest assured. It's in here. Arnie has gone to the kitchen in the meantime, and remember, he's completely drunk. He's come back with the Munich Agreement, which Hitler had hidden earlier.
Because he said, quote, I'm going to go rustle up some munchies, unquote.
Exactly. He's gone to look for a, I don't know.
Whatever
What
he
was
can
the snack
steal
of,
out of their
what was the snack
refrigerator.
of choice back in the day?
Yeah, good question.
A schnitzel or something. A cold schnitzel sandwich.
Well, he said he brought back chips and dip. Yeah, I've paid attention to the food in this show.
Right.
Yeah,
Were you
chips and
hungry
dip
when
for
you watched this?
everybody, he says. And I've found this piece of paper.
Well, yes. Wonder what that is.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's obviously been a bit of a cover-up, and when Neville realises what's happened, he confronts Hitler, and Hitler responds by losing his cool and shouting at the neighbours to get out. And in order to placate Neville, he signs the Munich Agreement, who leaves with Ruth.
Yeah.
And there's this joke on the way out, which Jeff just mentioned, where Eva says, aperitif? And he says, no thanks, I already have a pair.
He and points to his choppers. Well done.
And that's the end of the show.
Yeah, so we've sort of skipped over and not analysed certain scenes, because I did like that whole interaction, which took, a couple of minutes.
Yep.
Between Neville Chamberlain more or less saying, listen, fictional Adolf, you weren't trying to hide that in the refrigerator, were you? That's not on. I can see what they're saying about you is totally true. Because obviously he's then just lost his nana.
You're the kind of person that would hide a peace treaty in the fridge.
Yeah, that's right. And he's going, you're completely mad. And he's sort of, in his very polite British way, saying, we were right about you and you're not a particularly nice chappy, etc., etc. And fictional Adolf is going, oh, you're putting the knife in my heart, Neville. I'm a lovely chappy. Let me sign that piece of paper for you and all this sort of stuff. And it was the first good scene of the show, I thought.
No, there you go. Had a good scene.
But I want to have a whinge about Arnie. Arnie, what an unlikable character, because he comes in and not only does he get hammered but this is even before he's even started drinking. He's calling fictional Adolf Shorty, and he just goes into his cigar box and he gets 3 or 4 cigars and puts it in his shirt pocket and just says, oh, I'll have some of those. He doesn't say it, but that's what he does.
Well, the taxpayers paid for it.
Yeah, well, fair enough, including him.
Yeah.
That's his rates at work.
Exactly.
And then he puts his feet up on the coffee table where all the food is, and he's just basically being a complete bastard.
He's like the neighbour from Alf.
Oh, yeah, he's exactly like Mr.
He came
Operator.
around
Good call,
and
Steve.
made himself coffee.
Yep.
What
Took
else
a
did he do?
banana.
Took a banana.
Bananas are in all these sitcoms, Steve. What's going on?
It's it's really saying something when there's a character that's more annoying to you
Than Hitler. Yeah, but Honey does it.
Yeah.
Somehow.
He took the biscuit.
And everything else that wasn't nailed down.
Yes, and the cigars.
And the chips and the dip.
So really, I've just got some discussion points
Oh, yeah?
to
Okay.
lead us from here. So, first point for discussion.
Yep.
Without going into detail, is it Hall of Shame worthy? I.e. 1 star out of 5.
Right, so from what perspective?
Put aside your Paul Jackson fanboy.
Yeah. Well, I thought,
Status.
look, the actors, for what they were given, did a good job, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Presumably, they all had to put on American accents, and with the exception of, we didn't talk about that actor who plays Neville Chamberlain, who was quite a sitcom star of his own show.
Or the actress that plays Ruth.
Yeah. So, I thought the actors' accents were actually very good. I didn't hear them slip. I thought they delivered their lines well. I'm no expert on directing or any of that stuff, so I'll say it was... So
what you're saying is the English actors did a good job of
American
acting as Germans with American accents?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Sorry, carry on what were you saying about...
Yeah, I was saying that I don't know much about direction, so I'm just going to say it was competent because I didn't notice that anything was particularly utterly crap. Sets were nice, costumes were good. So from that, from looking at the whole production, I would say it was competent.
I want you to just rein it in there a little bit.
Yes, good. Excellent.
I'll just give my thoughts on the things you said. I thought the performances were fine, but there were no standouts. I wasn't amazed by anyone. I thought the wardrobe was fine. The sets were okay, but fairly limited.
Mm-hmm.
The Hitler's apartment had a bit of vertical stuff going on. There was a stair.
Levels.
Yeah, that was good. But it would have been nice to get some location work, and I thought for the first episode, the pilot episode, you would have expected maybe a bit more.
Maybe walking down the street. Yeah.
Yep. So, the next question is, could this premise work under any circumstances, given the sensitivities?
Probably not, no.
Probably not.
No. If it ever was going to work, it would have to have been during that post-war era where, well, for example... Your Dad's Army was produced by and starred people who had been in the war, like Hogan's Heroes. All these people had fought against the Nazis or escaped from the Nazis, and, the black humor and all this sort of stuff. So if it was going to work, it would have had to have worked in the 60s, I suppose. But even then...
Isn't it weird, or is it weird that we seem more sensitive to this stuff now in 2024 than... people were in the 50s and 60s when it was commonplace to make
That's right.
movies and TV about World War II.
Totally, because they defeated them. And if you've just given someone a right ass-kicking...
They didn't come back since the 50s and 60s and beat us or something. What's changed?
Well, we didn't live through it, I suppose. Yeah, it's difficult.
I wondered whether
to
it
say.
might be a bit of a... Because I was watching a podcast the other day and they were asking people... when World War II was on, or they started with World War I, and then they went on to ask people about World War II, and most of them couldn't say what years it was on, and most said years in the 30s, so I was just wondering, have we kind of lost a bit of the history? And I was wondering whether you need a knowledge of history to really get this episode.
Yeah, and so as a parallel, I was going to bring up Upstart Crow. So... Upstart Crow you can enjoy on its face, but it is a lot richer if you know your Shakespeare.
Yep.
And that adds another whole layer of humour to it. This isn't comparable to Upstart Crow, but if you did know more about history, are there gags in there for you that would be more worthwhile? Because I don't know.
I don't think there were any gags that were worthwhile in this.
Yeah, yeah, I was just asking the question.
Yeah, but no, I'll take your point. A knowledge of the subject matter does help in some cases, for sure. So I thought maybe it could work if you really leaned into this backstory idea like Garth Marenghi did, and you made the show worse. As it is, I can't tell if it's intentionally or unintentionally bad. Like some of those jokes are so bad, you can't think that they put them in thinking, people are going to be rolling in the aisles about this.
Yeah.
It seems intentionally bad, but I can't. There's no tell to really say that that's what they were going for.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, I think you've nailed it. And it's you and I have very different opinions on Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. But this is the thing, is it's hard to tell if you're intentionally making a bad show or you're just making a bad show by accident. You're still making a bad show. And so if it's not made clear, and I think they should have lent into the Garth Marenghi thing and then had, do you know what I mean? They needed that level, I think, of the found footage thing and all that sort of stuff. So I reckon you've made a really good call there.
Garth Marenghi, the point being that they thought they made this amazing show. But of course, we're in on the gag with the audience, which is that, it was complete crap. And I guess in this, if they had taken that approach in this case, we'd be looking back at it thinking, what had these mad lads done, thinking that this was a good show and that Hitler was an appropriate subject for a sitcom. And they seem to be going part way there with the thing at the start. So it's like they wanted to separate themselves from the subject matter by saying it's not our show, it's someone else's. We're presenting someone else's show, but they didn't go
hard enough,
far enough. Down that road.
No, I agree.
That road. What about, you kind of alluded to this earlier where you said about 8 episodes. How would you make 8 episodes? And I was thinking, what storylines could you make about Hitler that weren't kind of a bit tragic like this one was, where we're reliving the signature of this agreement that
you're
eventually
1,000,000% right.
fell over and led to World War II.
Yeah, so because at least with this one, right, no atrocities have taken place yet. Well, I mean, not no atrocities, because clearly they'd done some invading and it was bad news all around. But do you know what I mean? So this is pre the war kicking off big time. And so then if you progress it like Upstart Crow does through Shakespeare's career and then the writing of the plays, which is what makes it really good over that year's span. Yeah, with the remaining 8 episodes, or 7 episodes rather, out of the 11 or whatever it was, the only way you can go is forward.
Yeah.
And the more forward you go, the more you're digging yourself into a really big hole.
So I gave this a bit of thought, and I'll tell you the one idea I had, which was doomed to failure, which was, I thought to myself, Hitler had a dog which he loved, didn't he? I thought, surely he can make an episode about Hitler's dog. But then I remembered, when I did a bit of research, I discovered that he gave his dog cyanide to figure out if the cyanide would be enough to do them in.
Yeah. Oh dear.
So that idea had to go in the
bin.
In the bin.
Yeah. I'm with you.
So I'm just not. Yeah.
They had no room to manoeuvre.
There was nowhere to go.
I don't think. No, I don't think
but
so.
They made 8 episodes. They made 8. They had 8 in the can.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. But at least
those mad lads.
Yeah. Well, it gives us something to talk about.
It does. And
sorry,
I think we've had a good chat about that. No, I'm at the end of my notes now. We've established. Have we established Hall of Shame?
I think
Inducted?
so. Yeah.
Very good. And it's a bit of a head scratcher.
Yes, it is. Well, yes, if we're being positive, we'd say it's a curio. Yeah.
Swing and a miss.
Yeah, actually,
gave it
that's
a try.
very nice way of putting it. A swing and a miss.
Yeah. All right. What are we doing next month?
I don't know. Are we going to be here next month?
Idi Amin?
Yeah.
The long lost sitcom.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Stalin sitcom.
We could do Chelmsford 1, 2, 3, Steve.
Ooh.
Yeah. I don't know
Going
who the
back to
emperor
Roman
was
time.
at that point.
Roman
but,
times.
No.
Was that Roman times?
Yeah, it was.
No.
Yeah, so it was in the year 1, 2, 3, I think you'll find, Steve, in Chelmsford.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought I got a really good one in on you there. I was quite
that joke was better than anything I saw in this episode.
Thank you very much. But yes, so we'll be back next time with We Don't Know What at this point.
Yes. All right, well, see you in a month or so, listeners.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Join us next time on Sitcom Showdown when we'll be putting another 5-star episode under the microscope. And in the meantime, you can contact us with feedback on Facebook, Twitter @Sitcom Showdown, or by email sitcomshowdown@gmail.com.